Today's reading from our Constitutions contains the famous passage, "Without minority, poverty is meaningless and becomes pride, just as minority without poverty is a sham." I think that this twofold warning is essential to living a happy and balanced life as a Capuchin. It warns against a Pharisaism where brothers compete for a poverty that is self-sufficient and self-centered. I imagine a brother priding himself in not wearing shoes saying, "Yay, me," even though that's not what poor people in the U.S. go through. There's a danger of a spiritual athleticism that raises the ascetic above his brothers and sisters, and it deters him from leaning on God and building relationships of equality with poor and rich alike. On the other hand, our constitutions warn against what I call poverty tourism. When I spent a summer in Chimbote, Peru, I saw many one-week mission trips come through, and mingled amongst the well-meaning Christians that comprised them were poverty tourists. You could spot them because they always hid behind their cameras. They would walk through the streets of Chimbote and take pictures of all of the locals along the way as if they were Mickey or Goofy in some deranged third-world Disneyland. The camera for these tourists was a barrier they felt safe behind. It represented a wall between their worlds, even though the cost of those cameras was more than the Peruvians would make in a world. They did not have to face that fact, because the Peruvians, for them, became souvenirs they could take home to show their friends. It seems that these tourists could not read the quote written on the walls of the mission. "Take off your shoes, for the place where you tread is holy ground. God was here before you came, and if you are not careful, you may step on someone's dreams." Looking back, I want to shake those tourists, not because they were doing something inherently wrong. They weren't mean. They were good people, or at least trying to be good. But they missed out on so much. God said, "Happy are the poor in spirit." And those Peruvians had so much to teach us about joy and what really matters. They loved hospitality and eating with strangers and new people that showed up and couldn't even speak their language. They loved sharing what they had to have a good time. A man dropped his work one day suddenly just to go hiking with us, even though he barely knew us, and went off into the wilderness with us just because he knew that we needed to see the beauty that he had access to all the time. The children who filled those streets yelling for caramellos and playing tops were truly happy and unencumbered by the worries of a riches-filled life. An example of this was my friend Charo. Charo was a native who had married an American lay missionary. She had moved to the U.S. and in many ways could have been said to have got the golden ticket. She had tasted our country's comforts, but she and her husband chose to return and raise their children in that poor desert town which always smelled of fish. Charo was a holy woman, and I know you've met women like her. She had that kind of contentment and that confident reliance on God that you just knew there was something different about her. She exemplifies for me that minority and poverty are not burdens to be shouldered. They are the cost of entry for a life of joy. God does not call us to be miserable, but to be merciful. The root of mercy, misericordia, is to have another's misery in your heart. This is the root of joy, to have hearts open to the poverty of others and to lower ourselves into their worlds so that we might have full communion and full lives, because in doing so we are literally with Jesus, and he is the fulfillment of our every desire. This is the foolishness of the cross, and it is a wisdom open to all of us.